Hello everybody! By popular demand, a bread baking on board video. When we launched the boat, I made a bread on board and showed it in the video and got a lot of requests for the recipe, so here's my bread making recipe. Now, I've always made bread on our boat. Back on Magic Carpet 1, we did not have an oven, and I literally made bread in a frying pan on the stove. That is real, that is boat bread. That is bread that you can make anywhere. What I make now, I hesitate to really call it boat bread because, you know, this is bread that you make in a house, and in fact, you won't be able to make this on all boats because you do need an oven that gets really hot and is reliable. And you also need a cast iron pot, which is not exactly something that a ton of boats have on board. But just as a caveat to that, last season I didn't bring my cast iron pot and I made bread just in this saucepan in the oven, and that worked as well. So really what you're looking for is something that has a lid and that is as thick as possible. Like if you have a really thin camping pot, that won't work. All right, so this bread is awesome. It's not sourdough, which means that you don't have to fuss with a sourdough starter and keeping that alive and taking up space in your fridge. You also don't have to wait so long for the bread. You know, this bread is done the same day that you start it. And it's really, really delicious. Four ingredients: flour, salt, yeast, and water. That's it. In terms of what kind of flour, well, we'll get into that. Let's get started. We do use a scale, and I'm pretty adamant about that, to be honest. Now, the big caveat is when you're on a boat and it's moving a lot, the scale doesn't actually read accurately. But I find even in those situations, I still use it and I sort of aim for a number in the middle of where it's wildly fluctuating. But right now it's a very calm anchorage. It shouldn't have a problem. So we begin with 900 grams of flour. Now, this makes quite a large bread. But I just figure that if I'm gonna turn on the oven and use our propane, I might as well make the most of it. So I make a really big loaf, and Aladino really likes to eat bread, so it disappears pretty quickly. Okay, so 900 grams of flour. It's a little different every single time. 900 grams is what you're aiming for, and the actual composition of flours, I do it differently every time, but I usually do about half white flour and then half whatever other kind of flour. I've been doing a lot of spelt recently, which is delicious. I love spelt bread. But today I've got some rye that I want to finish off. So I'm gonna do rye bread. So I'll do approximately 450 grams of white. Okay, we're at 861 after I added all the rye, so I'll make up the difference with white. 906, 905. Okay, I'll take out a tiny bit. 903, close enough. So now that the flour is measured out, I'm going to add a tablespoon of yeast. This is what I use, active dry yeast. It works really well. So a tablespoon of this. I do keep this in the fridge, but it's a really small bottle, so it doesn't take up too much room. And you don't have to keep it in the fridge. My mom has never kept her yeast in the fridge, and it does still seem to work. A tablespoon of salt. Okay, so that's all of our ingredients now except for the water. Now I'm just gonna give it a quick stir just to put the yeast and the salt and all the different flours kind of roughly mixed up together, and then I'll add the water. And I'm gonna add 680 grams of water. By the way, this recipe is adapted from the King Arthur no knead bread recipe. They only use white flour, but I find that it works with any kind of flour, really. Their baking methods are also really different than mine, but the proportion of ingredients is pretty much this. This tool that I'm using, oh, it looks really good now that I've got flour and water all over it, but I've been making bread for years and I only got this tool a month ago, so you really don't need it. but it's called a Danish dough hook, and it just helps to stir the dough together a little easier. Like I said, I used to just use a spatula or a wooden spoon, and that's totally fine. Okay, so I'm stirring it just until it looks like dough, sort of. And I'm not going any further than that. Like, I'm not gonna need this. The beauty of this bread is it's pretty hands-off. But the one important thing to making it like a really lovely dough with a really nice shape and a really kind of strong dough that rises and doesn't just stay flat, that actually comes a little bit later. So I'm going to let this rest for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then I'm going to come back and do something that's very easy but very important. So I'll talk to you again in 5 to 10 minutes.
This bread is amazing, and I grew up very bread spoiled. So given that there is so many hacks to this too, to really simplify it, I am so blown away, because Maya is replicating bread that I ate growing up in Switzerland, which was the bread of breads. It was hard to find. It was like organic, and the flour was stone ground, and it was cooked in a wood-fired oven. So it was like the best of the best, and this tastes the same, if not better. So I'm like blown away. I think some of the secret is, well, spelt flour or rye flour. That's how you make it a little more Northern European, and all the other little hacks are just through experience that Maya has worked out over the years. And how lucky am I?
Okay, here comes the technique part of this whole story. So this took me about 15 minutes because we're filming it, but normally it literally takes me 5 minutes to whip this together. You saw how it goes. You throw in some flour, yeast, salt, put in the water, and at the end I've only got 1 bowl to wash and 1 spoon to wash. So it is really simple, but ready for the fancy part? You can see the dough is really messy, and I want this looking more like one of those nice smooth balls that like balls of dough that you see in professional bread baking books. And it's not just for looks, there's a reason for this. So, well, okay, I'll show you the technique first, then I'll tell you why I'm doing it. Get your hand really wet, like really, really quite wet. Okay, it's thoroughly saturated. And then slide your hand onto the side of the dough underneath it. Grab it as best as you can. It's going to be hard this first time. Like, you can't really grab it, it'll break. But then as much as you can, fold it over on itself. Then do it again. I'm going to get my hand wet again. Now I'm going to stick my hand down the side again. Not where I just folded it. Pick it up as best as I can, stretch it as much as I can, fold it over. Okay, and I'm just gonna keep going like that. So if you get a close-up detail shot, pick it up, fold it, pick it up, fold it. Okay, so that looks pretty reasonable for this first set of folds. The first set is always a little messier. The bread won't have a lot of stretch to it, but it has now come together. It's got a nice smooth top, and what we're doing here is we're strengthening the dough. As it gives the dough, well, yeah, strength to actually sort of hold its shape and rise in a way that makes it look like bread instead of sort of like a sad, flattened pancake. I'm gonna come back periodically and just do this a few more times. How many times? It doesn't matter. It changes every single time that I do it. Roughly speaking, I'll do this again half an hour from now, and then I'll probably do it again another half hour after that, and that's probably enough. In terms of the rising, the type of flour that I've used here is going to play a big role. Rye doesn't rise as much, so I'm not going to get like a massively fluffy rise from this. Spelt flour rises really well, white flour obviously really well. Okay, I'm going to cover this. That's important. You should cover it with something. These mixing bowls have lids, which I love. All right, now we wait. We're going to start moving actually, so the next update might be underway. Okay, so on these second set of folds, you should find it a lot easier to stretch the dough up. The dough has a really different texture now. It's just a lot more elastic. But as you stretch and fold, you can feel the strength building in it, and it slowly becomes less and less stretchy. And that's what you want. And then when you feel like all of the stretch has sort of been stretched out of it, then you just sort of shape it into a nice little ball, and off you go, and you wait for another little while until you do another set of folds. Oh, hello! We're just absolutely smashing along upwind. There's waves coming over the bow, but that's not to say that I can't tend to my bread. Didn't I tell you this was so easy? Living on the walls or not. The interior is a little bit in shambles, but here we go. The next step of the bread baking. It's been an hour now since the last one. I know I said half an hour, but I lied. Okay, the consistency of the dough should have really changed now. Should be a lot stretchier. I should get a real good stretch. Yeah, look at that.
Wow.
Stretch. Tuck it under, rotate the bowl, stretch up, tuck it under. I need more water on my hand, one sec. That feels great. That's a good dough right there. Good stuff. Good stuff right here.
That took on a different tone from this morning.
Okay, there we go. Freshly stretched. And I'm just gonna let this hang out till whenever it is that we are in port, which is probably gonna be another hour. So I don't really know. Doesn't matter. I can leave this for 8 hours or I can leave it for 2 and nobody's gonna care. It's gonna be delicious. Hello, hello. Welcome back. We just got in after a pretty exciting sail out there, and somehow it has actually gotten to be 5 hours since the last update. So 5 hours since I stretched this bread dough. That's how you say it. But that doesn't matter because it's super flexible and it's still going to turn out exactly how I want it. So it has not risen a ton, but that's because there's a lot of rye flour in this dough, which I expected. But once we bake it, it's still actually going to have a nice fluff and a really nice crumb to it. It's probably one of the lesser dense rye breads using this method. Anyway, we're going to do one last set of folds. So wet my hand, and you know the process by now. Sort of slide your hand in on the side, lift it up. It's got quite a lot of stretch now. Fold it under. And then turn the bowl, quarter turn, lift, fold. There's the whole thing. Let it all stretch out, fold it down, really let it stretch. So this is our sort of final ball. Now, if I was being really proper about it, which why start now? I haven't been proper this entire time. Then I would transfer it onto a work surface and flour that. But since this bowl is already dirty and I don't want to get flour all over everywhere else, I'm just going to lightly dust the top of this in flour. And come in close here, Dean, so that you can see what's going on. Okay, so this is dusted with flour now. I'm going to spread it all around, and then I'm going to lift the whole thing up and make sure there's flour on the bottom of the bowl, turn it upside down. And then I'm going to do a few tuck and folds. This is kind of important to see, I think. So you sort of reach the side, you grab it and you tuck it into the middle. And this is just tightening the front of the loaf so that we have a really nice, tight top and our bread looks really professional and great. Okay, then once it's all tucked in, I sort of give it a little bit of a squeeze. And now that's ready to go. Okay, so the next part is just the final rise before baking. I never give this one very much time. I basically give it as much time as it takes for the oven to preheat. Sometimes, just 15 minutes. It doesn't, in my experience, letting it rise at this stage longer actually leads to a weaker dough that doesn't puff as nicely and sort of spreads a little bit more, because those folds are what's adding strength, but as you let it sit, then that strength is kind of lost. So I don't let it sit too long at this stage. Now, I didn't mention this at the beginning because I didn't want to let it put you off. I do use one of these bread proofing baskets. I think it's called a banneton, but you don't need to do this, obviously. You can just get a bowl and line it with a tea towel, put a little bit of flour on that tea towel, and let the bread rise upside down, like as it currently is, in that bowl. The goal here, and the reason we use this, is it just kind of dries the crust out a little bit, so you get that really, really lovely crispy crust. But if you do it in a tea towel, it'll do the same thing. And I did that for quite a while before I got one of these. That said, again, it's, you know, 10 to 15 bucks on Amazon, so it's not exactly hard to come by. Flour it a little bit. That was a little bit too much. I'll shake out the excess just on top of the bread. And now I'm just going to pick up my dough the way that a mother cat picks up her child. Plop it in. And now if you're using a bread proofing basket, these ridges will actually create a really beautiful pattern in the dough. Press it down a little bit, but that's just for looks. It's not important, so you don't actually need it. And then I'm going to preheat the oven with the cast iron inside of it, because we want to put the bread into a hot pan, and that's going to help it steam, and it's going to give it that really lovely crust. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this on to 450. I've got the cozy vibes going now. Just opened a little tin of sardines as a snack until the bread is ready. So this is a bit of a maneuver because it's upside down in here, so we gotta just tip it over into the bowl. I usually put all my fingers out like this to kind of catch it at first, position myself, and then let it drop. It never works perfectly, but it still ends up looking okay. Just be careful because the pot is obviously hot, but good enough. And then I take a little knife. I find it works better if the knife is not serrated. This is what I usually use. And you just carve a pattern in the top. You can carve any pattern. Because of the circular pattern of this, I like to do a circular pattern. So I'll go around the edge, and this will just make it look extra good. Okay, now lid back on, and this goes in the oven at 450 for 40 minutes, 40. Once the timer goes off, I'm gonna come back to the oven, remove the lid, but leave the bread in for another 10 minutes, and then take it out. So it's 50 minutes total cook time, 40 minutes with the lid on, 10 minutes with the lid off. Then we're done. But you gotta have a quick peek as well. It's looking great, and that's just gonna brown and crisp up even more in these final 10 minutes. All right, it has been kind of a long day unexpectedly. We were just over at our friend's boat for dinner, so it has actually been a few hours now since I pulled this out of the ovens. And it's good to not eat it straight away, because if you cut into it right out of the oven, it's like really steamy and still kind of wet and still kind of baking, so you do want to give it some time to rest. Anyway, moment of truth now. Shall we have our piece of bread for dessert, Aladino?
Oh yeah. beautiful loaf. This is quite incredible. Wow. Good, dense, nutritious, soft.
It's like hearty, but it is still fluffy, right? Like it's not actually dense like some of those breads can be.
It's perfect. It's exactly like the bread that I had from the Vierlindenbäckerei. This never have I been so more excited to get up in the morning and have some for breakfast. Delicious.
Yay. Well, I'm sure you'll eat your fill tomorrow. And for now, time for bed. Good night, everybody. Sweet dreams of good bread.